Hi guys, I'm Megan, and welcome back to another episode of There I Read It, where I'm reading the Harry Potter books for the first time ever in my entire 30-something year existence, and today we are on the Prisoner of Azkaban Chapter 2, which is called Aunt Marge's Big Mistake. And this was really an interesting chapter because we heard Marge referenced in the first book, but this is the first time we're seeing her, so she definitely makes a first impression, not really a great one, but a first impression nonetheless. And we also see a lot of hormonal angst out of Harry, it's getting to a whole scary, problemsome level. But let me dive into my notes. So it's still Harry's birthday, and he's come downstairs for breakfast now, and the Dursleys don't even acknowledge that he exists. And not even how you would maybe expect some petty little kids to be of, oh, where's Harry? Oh, I don't see any Harry here. Who's Harry? But they just make no recognition of Harry being present. And really, I think that's probably the best for everybody. I mean, obviously Harry has some feels about how the Dursleys treat him and how they're ignoring him right now, but if they did put their focus on him, it tends to never be for anything good anyways. And considering that the Dursleys are just horrified of magic and they're worried that, somebody might break down their door and turn them all into pigs if they upset Harry the wrong way, I can see where it would really be in their best interest to just ignore Harry as well. Just, okay, fine, you don't even exist, whatever, live here and go. But honestly, that makes for the best treatment that Harry seems to have described out of the 3 books so far. And on the news, they're talking about an escaped convict that people need to watch out for, even though they don't say where he escaped from. And his name is Black, and he has this elbow-length matted hair that the Dursleys just find repulsive. And even Harry's like, hey, I'm doing pretty good compared to this guy. My hair looks pretty nice compared to this guy. And even if I hadn't seen the movies and had the name Black stick out to me, Black is also referenced in the very first chapter of The Sorcerer's Stone, because when Hagrid brings Harry to Privet Drive, he explains that he borrowed the flying motorcycle from Sirius Black, so it's gotta be the same guy. There seems to be no detail in J.K. Rowling's writing that goes to waste. But then Harry finds out that Aunt Marge is going to be visiting for about a week, and she breeds bulldogs in the country, but that's all Harry really knows about her, other than she's really mean to him. Apparently, Aunt Marge whacked Harry in the shins so that Dudley would win a game instead of Harry, and then for one Christmas, she gave Dudley this really nice, elaborate electronic gift, and then gave Harry dog biscuits. And say what you will about the Dursleys, at least they're not trying to feed him dog food. I mean, that's just a really mean-spirited, weird touch. And then at Aunt Marge's last visit, Harry accidentally stepped on her dog Ripper, and to that, Ripper just decided to chase Harry up a tree, and Aunt Marge did not call the dog off until after midnight. So, I mean, you want to talk about real, legit abusive behaviors? That is 1,000,000,000% Aunt Marge. She is cuckoo dukes crazy. And Uncle Vernon actually tries to set up rules with Harry before Marge steps into the house. He says Harry must keep a civil tongue, and Harry's just like, I will if she does. And Harry can't do any funny stuff, referring to anything magical, to which he's also like, well, I won't have to if she's not awful. And Harry has to memorize and stick to the story that Vernon gave his sister, which is that Harry actually goes to school at St. Brutus's Secure Center for Incurably Criminal Boys. Does that even exist? Is that a real thing? I've heard of military schools in the US, but a school for incurably criminal boys, what the heck? I mean, you gotta give it to the Dursleys. If nothing else, they're worth a few chuckles for the weird stuff they come up with. Oh, and then it's mentioned kind of in passing here that for one birthday, Harry was given Uncle Vernon's old socks. And this is the very first time out of all 3 of the books so far that we've been given a direct example that Harry got a gift that maybe just wasn't subpar, but was actively mean and hateful. And it's almost like J.K. Rowling is starting to get feedback as these books come out, so she is shifting the story narrative to more fit what she wants to force people to believe. Because in the first book, there is a lot of leeway for what the Dursleys did or didn't do with Harry, and they're slowly starting to chip away at that. So it's like any empathy, any leeway, any feelings that you might have that could be remotely towards the belief that the Dursleys have their own story here, it's like Rowling doesn't like that, so she wants to sprinkle in all of these little bits to make you just feel like, no, they're the worst people in the universe. There's no excuse for them. And the more I read, the worse they definitely look. But I don't know, I still don't like my villains to be, haha, we're evil for the sake of evilness. I don't like a two-dimensional villain. I like a nice three-dimensional villain that has their own motives, their own problems. But not to be outdone by the line about the old sock, Vernon actually gets irritated enough with Harry that he raises his fist at him like he's gonna hit him. And I do believe that's the first time that they're mentioning any type of attempted physical violence towards Harry from Vernon. Of course, Petunia still wants to pretend like Harry doesn't exist, and Dudley is still, well, right now he doesn't really seem to be messing with Harry other than listening intently when his dad's mean to him. But, you know, even before, when Dudley was punching on Harry, it's a lot different when it's two kids the same age versus a grown adult and a little boy. So yeah, in the last book, by the time the Dursleys were phasing out of the story, I felt like they'd gotten way too far and well into child abuse ranges, but now it seems like Vernon is just starting at a 10. There's no build up anymore. He's just fed up waiting for an excuse to pop. But instead of hitting Harry, Vernon and Harry kind of come to this agreement that if Harry keeps up with his story and behaves while Marge is there, then Vernon might sign the permission slip to let Harry go to Hogsmeade. So Marge ends up over in the house. She has her dog Ripper with her, and for whatever flimsy reason, Ripper can't stay home alone with the other bulldogs that Marge breeds, so he has to be there with her. And it's mentioned that Petunia hates animals, so she's kind of watching Ripper a little bit cringy when he makes a mess, and of course bulldogs are really drooly and kind of dirty, icky, and I'm sure people who own them love them. I'm not saying they're horrible animals, but if you're kind of a clean freak or a germaphobe, they're probably not the dog for you. But I thought it was really interesting and really telling that they mentioned Petunia hates animals. And I don't even mean that as a reflection on her personal character, because what kind of person hates animals? All of them, really? But more to the fact that surely Vernon is aware that Petunia hates dogs, and still Vernon would rather make his sister happy, not stir the pot with her, not ever tell her no, rather than keep his wife feeling happy. It's an interesting dynamic. And if Marge is aware that Petunia doesn't like animals, maybe she's hid it her entire life from Marge, I don't know, but if Marge does know, it shows such a huge level of disrespect for Petunia and thinking so little of her that she's gonna, well, you're gonna deal with my dog whether you like dogs or not. It's such a bloated sense of, well, nobody cares about you because I'm the queen. And whereas the Dursleys prefer Harry to not be around them, so stay up in your room, do whatever, just keep away from us, Marge, on the other hand, wants Harry right under her nose where she can watch him and pick at all of his faults and flaws. So when the subject of Harry's school comes up, Marge wants to know if Harry is getting caned at that school, if they're actually beating this kid with a cane. And then she's upset because she doesn't think they're beating him hard enough. But I will say, because I've said it before in other videos, so I'm sure somebody's going to call me out on it if I don't mention it, Marge has this little tangent that she goes on about how, well, if I were my brother, I would have dumped you off in an orphanage and never dealt with you. And I do kind of agree with that. I do think that that is still a fair and valid point and something that even I would have done, because I am not going to live 17, 18 years in pure misery for the sake of somebody else. I don't care who that is. I don't even know if I'd be willing to do that for my own children, let alone one of my nieces or nephews. And to those of you screaming at your devices that, oh my gosh, what kind of terrible person would say something like that? Mommies are perfect. You have to be perfect all the time. Perfect children, everything. Ugh. Don't you think it would be better to have a child put into a system or raised by another family who might actually love and care about them than put them in a situation where they never feel loved or cared about. I mean, you only get that one life, and you have no excuse to live it being miserable every day. So if there is a factor in your life that is making you miserable, and it is an optional factor like taking on somebody else's kid, then yeah, there's no way I would do that. And I know I've had people comment before that, well, that's all going to be explained in a later book, but as of right now, there is no reason for the Dursleys to keep taking Harry back. And I'm honestly shocked that they did after the events in book 2. But overall, Marge's watchful eye and her sharp tongue doesn't mesh really well with Harry's angst. And the more Marge talks, the angrier he's getting, to where he's like physically boiling over and shaking and he can't take it anymore. You know, probably how the Dursleys feel every day of their life with Harry around. But Harry keeps trying to bite his tongue, going, I need that permission slip signed, I gotta be good, I need to go to Hogsmeade, please, just I gotta get through this week. And eventually Harry is getting so out of control, emotional, and angry that while Marge is chugging back one glass after another, her wine glass breaks, and all the Dursleys are just staring at Harry like, oh no, please no, please no. But Marge is just really cool with the wine glass breaking in her face, and she's like, oh no, I've got a really firm grip. This happened before with Colonel Fubster. I think I'm saying that right. Fubster, her pseudo neighbor. So Marge just legit thinks, I was so drunk I squeezed the glass until it shattered like that. And it's never really disclosed if Harry did it or if Marge did it, but I certainly lean towards Harry. And then the final straw where Harry can't contain himself anymore is when Marge starts setting her sights on James, and she was like, what did he do for a living? And Vernon says, oh, he was unemployed, to which Marge, picked that up like a dog and ran with it. Oh, what a scroungy layabout, good for nothing, blah, blah, blah. No wonder this boy is such a mess. And that just makes Harry pop. And his mental pop makes Aunt Marge swell up into a big balloon creature. And I don't really know what happens to her, because Harry is so mad, he goes and gathers up his stuff. He said the closet door just bursts open before he even touches it, and he's just dead set to run away. He doesn't even care where. He doesn't care at this point. He's assuming he's gonna get expelled from Hogwarts through the Ministry of Magic for, blowing Marge up like a beach ball. But right before he can leave, Uncle Vernon comes chasing him down, going, you turn her back right now. And Harry actually takes out his wand and threatens Vernon with his wand and says that his sister deserved it. Then he just leaves without fixing Marge, totally refusing to put that woman back in her right body. And I mean, yeah, she's a horrible, horrible person. She even says that she drowns her inferior bulldog puppies. Like, what? Not every dog has to be a show dog. I mean, shoot, even if you're just selling it as a pet, that's still money, and it's still a puppy that was alive. If the dog was healthy and able to live with people, you should not be putting it down. But as horrible as Marge is, I do have to say that this whole situation where Harry snapped is not her fault, because all of the information she has about Harry and all of these negative opinions she's formed is straight from the lips of her brother and sister-in-law. So of course, when you say, oh yeah, his dad was unemployed and his family was like this and he's like that and he's going to the school for incurably criminal boys, of course she's not going to think anything nice of this kid. And she just has a personality just like Vernon's, where she can't not pick at a wound that she sees. Like, oh look, I see a scab right here, let me pick at it until it bleeds all over the place. Like, she is not a good woman, and she should certainly know better than to speak like that in front of a child, especially. So I mean, I guess her personality is her fault, but the horrible things that she says is on Vernon, because Vernon fed her bad information. And I'm curious, I know the next chapter is called The Night Bus. I don't really remember the context for The Night Bus, but I remember a tiny bit from the movie. This was the worst movie for me. I could not stand it. I thought it was so long and drawn out and boring. I'm hoping the book is going to be a lot more peppy and informative, but I'm really, really curious what is going to happen with purple floating beach ball Marge, and if she's gonna stay like this forever, or if Harry's gonna have to eat crow and walk back in the house and deflate her within a few hours or whatever. All around, it's just really a strange situation, and if the fourth book starts with Harry back in the Dursleys' house, I'm gonna flip a table angry. This has boiled over into such a horrible situation for both parties, and they're both making it worse all the time. You know, the Dursleys are mean-spirited, so Harry comes in pretending he can use magic on them in their house, so they're terrified, and then they find out he lied, so they lock him in his room, and then he escapes, and they're just like, well, stay all summer at Hogwarts then, we don't want you back. And he comes home anyways, and they let him in the house anyways. So I'm just so confused at this point. It makes no sense. And again, without having the context for the other 4 books, if this had been me and I was going off the information I had based on the first 3 books, there is no way I would have picked up Harry after that second year. CPS would have been there to meet him, or I would have, you know, been like, oh, I hope you have friends to go with this summer, or something. You know, I would not have taken him back. If I was that scared and that horribly unhappy around somebody, I would not let them back in my house, especially not around one of my kids. I know the Dursleys are probably going to hit that point very, very soon where they're completely indefensible and I'm just going to hate them. But I'm just saying, all of this crap takes a toll on you. Being a parent is already like having somebody smash you in the face with a bowling ball over and over and over again. Now do that with somebody else's kid who can actually hurt you with magic and you're afraid of them, and just see how much that multiplies in creating a cesspool of a situation. But we'll see what chapter 3 brings, and I'm gonna quit ranting on and on and on here and tell you guys thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time, family members. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that? Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share 1 or 2 on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.